It can feel devastating to find out that your partner's cheated. When infidelity or affairs happen in relationships and marriages, it can feel like the ultimate betrayal of trust. Oftentimes, people mistakenly think that this is the end of a relationship, but that's often because they misunderstand exactly why people explore other relationships. So in this video, I'm going to break down why your partner is exploring another relationship right now, what it really means, and how to re-attract your partner back. So often when people find out about an affair, infidelity, or even what some people call an emotional affair, the knee-jerk reaction can be to jump to your own assumptions about why it happened. Usually the reasons that we tell ourselves are something along the lines of, they don't love me, or it's a character flaw, like they're a cheater, they're a liar, they can't be trusted, they're unable to control themselves, or they'll think to themselves, well, I'm not rich enough, successful enough, or good looking enough. The thing is, these myths may give us a sense of quick satisfaction or even closure at the time, but it's actually not the reason why people cheat. So first of all, the idea that they don't love you. The thing is, human beings are complex and are actually capable of loving one person and sleeping with another. The idea that something is a character issue. Again, just because someone behaves in a certain way once or even multiple times, it doesn't mean that this is their character. There is actually something called the actor-observer bias, which is where we set different standards for other people's behaviors compared to our own. So the idea is that when we are the actor, when we are observing our own behavior, we look at all the situational and different contexts around our behavior, and we use that as the excuse for our behavior. Whereas when we are the observer, we're looking at people's actions, thinking to ourselves, well, that's because that's a character flaw. They're doing this because this is their character, not because of the context around them. And next, the myth of the idea that money or looks is why someone is having an affair right now is also not true. Money and looks can add to someone's attractiveness, but it's still a very low level value. So unless your partner is a sex worker, which I'd assume you know by now if your partner was, people rarely sleep with someone just because they're rich or just because they're successful. So that's an incorrect assumption that we have. So if people don't explore other relationships because of these things, why does a partner cheat? Well, there's actually a very simple equation to explain this. And I know that this will be very controversial to a lot of people, but it's really crucial to understand the behavior behind infidelity. So this is the equation. So when the individual needs are greater than the emotional safety multiplied by the intellectual intimacy multiplied by the goal synergy, that equals infidelity. So I understand this may look a little bit confusing right now, so let's break this down bit by bit. So every relationship is built on three main elements. There's emotional safety. That's the freedom to express our feelings, thoughts, ideas freely. Then there's intellectual intimacy, which is the ability to problem solve together, to actually build the respect between you both. Then there is goal synergy. That's the ability to both align on individual needs together. So essentially, this is being able to speak about problems, solve problems, and align both of your individual needs together. That is the elements of the relationship itself, of both people together. But we are individuals within that relationship, so we still have our own individual needs. For example, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there are the physiological needs, the basic needs for survival, food, water, shelter, sleep. Once the physiological needs are met, people seek safety and security, health, financial, protection from harm, etc. Then there are the love and belonging needs. This is the social needs, relationships, friends, family, sense of belonging. Then there are esteem needs, which is when our social needs are satisfied. So this is the self-esteem, respect from others, recognition, etc. Then there's the self-actualization needs, which is the highest level. This is where we focus on growth, self-improvement, realizing our full potential. So as an individual, we have these needs. And if one or all of these needs in an individual are greater than the relationship can provide as two people, then we as an individual will still have those needs, and it will feel unfulfilled in the relationship. Because if you think about it, we all have these needs as a person by ourselves. So if together in the relationship, there is no way of achieving these needs, then what is the point of being in a relationship? And it sounds very harsh, but the idea of being in a relationship, it's supposed to give you greater value than being alone. So the value of the relationship is not providing at least the basic needs, then what is the point in being in the relationship? So to be blunt, if the relationship is not able to be bigger than the sum of its parts, i.e. bigger than being individuals, then as individuals, you're better off either being alone or with someone else. What's the point in a relationship if it's not actively making your life better, right? So as people come in and out of our lives, we meet new people and all that sort of stuff. If the relationship has not been providing these needs for a while, then other partners can start to become more attractive because it seems like this combination may be able to provide those needs. Now, at this point, a lot of people who have experienced a partner having an affair or cheating or infidelity, that we usually have one of these 3 points in mind. First, they threw away our future because of this affair. Or they could have the point of, yeah, but we could have worked through it. Or they could say, well, they didn't even give me a chance. They didn't even tell me that this was going on. So let's break down these things one by one. And just before we jump into that, if you do want more videos like this, then feel free to subscribe to the channel for new videos on relationships every single week. So the first one that usually comes about is, well, they threw away our entire future because of this one moment, right? So this equation actually tells us exactly why this happened. This is goal synergy. So you're aligning your goals together and actually creating that future together, creating the win-win situations. That takes skill. It takes the ability to be able to synergize your goals, your needs together, right? The right mindsets, the right actions, the right communication. So they've made a radical choice right now because they don't see the potential in the future of the relationship. They've made that decision themselves. They've seen a potential path forward and they're like, I can't do this. I don't see that future. So unfortunately, this means that, as part of the relationship, you had no idea on what those individual needs were to be able to synchronize them, or you did know what those needs were and you weren't cultivating the synergy together to support those steps. So both of those are a problem, right? Goal synergy is damaged, then it means right now that they don't see you as being stronger together, right? The next objection is, yeah, well, we could have worked through it. And again, this is in the equation. This is the intellectual intimacy. They didn't feel confident in your ability to overcome these problems. And this is likely because these problems in the past have been ignored, left to appear again and again. Your partner doesn't feel the respect for this logical part of the equation, right? You can love someone but not respect their process. And this means that there's been huge gaps in developing the respect for the way that you overcome challenges, that you lead your relationship through these challenges, the way that you grow yourself, the way that you expand yourself. So when you have that feeling of, oh, we could have worked through this, then your partner has not seen evidence of that. When that intellectual intimacy is broken, it means that there isn't any evidence of a strong process to be able to work through these challenges. They just don't buy that idea. And then there's the idea that they didn't give you a chance. They didn't even tell you. And again, this is, the fundamental of emotional safety. So when emotional safety is broken, it means that they don't even feel comfortable to open up to you about how they're feeling, about all of this, about the idea that they have these worries about the relationship, that the relationship isn't fulfilling them, that they've been having attraction to somebody else, etc. And the reason why they didn't feel that emotional safety is that they came to this conclusion because of the many, many times in the past that they did try to speak to you, when they did try to raise concerns, objections, their feelings. So when you feel like they didn't give you a chance, that they didn't tell you about this, they likely did many, many times in many, many different ways. But every single time they did, there was a negative reaction. You responded in one of the many subtle but toxic ways over time. And if you do want a little bit of a deeper dive into these many subtle toxic ways, then I'll link to this video above. But over time, basically your partner started to realize that they didn't feel safe talking to you. They didn't feel like talking to you was actually going to achieve anything. And they decided to stop even trying to tell you. And that's when emotional safety is destroyed. They kept all of those feelings inside, which means that those needs didn't change. Your partner still had these needs and wants and hopes and dreams, but they couldn't express them to you. So there was no chance of them getting resolved. So because they felt like they couldn't talk about it because of no emotional safety, this means that you couldn't even get to the problem solving, which is the intellectual intimacy, which means that you're not even going to be able to synchronize your needs, which is the goal synergy. They couldn't even get past step one. So they had a moment where they made a choice. And because they had the choice between potentially living a life where they don't get their needs met, which they've been experiencing through their perspective, or the other choice is explore another relationship where it could potentially happen. So when it feels like they threw away the entire relationship based on this has been happening internally for a long time. So to them, they really didn't see the potential in the future. So it didn't feel like they were throwing away really that much. So that leaves the question, now that you can start to understand why they have those reasons for cheating, what can actually be done? Well, if you think about it, the equation actually gives us the answer, right? So when individual needs are greater than the emotional safety, the intellectual intimacy, and the goal synergy, that equals infidelity. So in order to start to heal a relationship, turn it around, then you need to increase the values of emotional safety, intellectual intimacy, and goal synergy. Once you increase those values, then it eliminates the desire to explore other relationships. So how do we increase these values? Well, just before I break this down, obviously there is only so much that I can dive into in a short YouTube video. So if you do want a deeper dive into what these three elements are and how they impact your relationship, then join me on my free Relationship Bootcamp, where I go into much deeper detail, where I'll give you the steps to start turning your relationship around, even after an affair or infidelity. Click on the link in the description to get started today. So first, it's really important to start focusing on making the right changes. You know, again, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so many people, men especially, sorry guys, focus on things like money, looks, etc. But if you think about these needs are something many people can offer. You could become the hottest, richest person in the world, but it's not going to re-attract your partner back. Think about it. If working out and money were the thing that everyone wants, then everyone would be swooning over Jeff Bezos, right? Which in my experience, they're really not. So don't focus on the lower level values. Start to look at the higher level values. Create the connection, the self-actualization, etc. So few people focus on these levels in relationships. But these are the ones that are most valuable. These are high value. When people talk about becoming a high value partner, these are the higher values. Next, it's important to be systematic about making these changes and building back the relationship. You know, emotional safety, intellectual intimacy, and goal synergy are built from the ground up. So start by building the emotional safety, by changing the way you communicate, managing your emotions. And then once you start to open your partner up and create an atmosphere where they're able to talk about the issues, be able to talk about the problems and challenges that they've been feeling, then and only then should you start to look at the practical steps to overcome them. This is the intellectual intimacy. Then once you have the emotional safety, you can build the intellectual intimacy by start working through these problems. And then after that, that is when you can start focusing on aligning the deeper levels of both of your needs on a regular basis in order to move forward and keep building that long-term goal. This is the goal synergy. And during this, it's really crucial to make sure that you are becoming rather than promising. You know, it can be easy to tell your partner that you're going to change, that things are going to get better, or that you're going to try harder. But the thing is, right now, a lot of the time, your partner will have heard a lot of similar things and believed them, but those promises never came to pass. So making more promises will likely fall flat, or worse, trigger more damage to the relationship because they're reminded of those past unkept promises. So it's really important the way you speak to them at this time and not to try to convince them to come back. And if you do want to deeper dive into that, then I'll leave you with this video right here. I'll see you over there.